hello, and thank everyone for taking the time to be here today. This is going to be the very first ProLink HFA webinar for 2026. We appreciate you taking the time to join us today to talk about what's new and some of our ProLink solution highlights. Please note that throughout this webinar, our chat is going to be disabled. You're welcome to ask any questions throughout the Q&A. And during our follow-up session, our follow-up documents, I'll be sending out an email with the slide deck presentation and any questions that were answered or asked throughout the webinar, and we'll be providing those answers as well during that time. All right, for today's presentation, I'm just going to cover a brief summary of ProLink Solutions for anybody who is not familiar with our company. And then we're going to turn it over to Jessica to talk about our tenant import start dates, some Procorem updates, additional set-aside changes, as well as updates to Procorem Inspect. Real quick, I am Alexis Sanchez. I am the Sales and Marketing Associate here with ProLink Solutions. Jessica Britton is our Customer Success Supervisor with ProLink. She brings over 12 years of experience and she's very passionate about our customers. She advocates for them and she's always working to help find a solution that benefits everybody involved in the process. Again, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to walk through a quick overview of ProLink. Now, this webinar is just supposed to be a quick tour of functionality, give you some highlights. It's not a full training, but it's just to highlight all of our features for anybody that's interested in ProLink HFA. So I know we have a lot of our clients joining us, so you are familiar with this, but we have been in the affordable housing industry for over 25 years. We work with state and local housing finance agencies, tax credit syndicators, investors, and developers. We work really hard to build systems that are holistic and bring all different stages of the deal lifecycle together, as well as the collaboration and involvement that you need from others. We have a great team of employees that have been a part of the industry for over 15 years. They know this business and they speak your language. So we are very dedicated to this industry. A high-level picture of all the agencies that we do support across the United States. We have 18 housing finance agencies and 2 supportive agencies in California and New York. And this is just a bird's eye view of our enterprise module. We always do offer these through modules. When it comes with ProLink HFA, we have our asset management and compliance module, tax credit allocation, as well as our development module. And I do want to take a quick moment to highlight our in-person user group conference this year. We're going to be hosting it at the end of June, June 23rd to the 24th at the Inverness in Colorado, like normal. And we are focusing on, our user group is one of the most valuable resources we offer our clients. And this year we're placing a huge emphasis on collaboration. And to make this event as impactful as possible, we're asking for as much input as we can. So we currently have a survey that is out. I'm going to share it in the chat right now for everybody to access that. If anybody from your agency is planning to attend, we'd really love if you could share this with them to help us build the most collaborative conference this year. All right. I'm going to hand things over to Jessica, and we're going to get started on all of our new functionality that's available in ProLink. Jessica, if you take it away.
Thanks, Alexis. Let me share my screen. One moment. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining our first webinar of 2026. If I've not met you before, my name is Jessica Britton, and I'm the Customer Success Supervisor here at ProLink Solutions. And today I'm going to be highlighting a few of the recent enhancements that have been released in both our ProLink HFA and Procorem products. So the first thing I wanted to highlight was released actually with our Q4 of 2025 Procorem release, and that is the tenant import start date. This allows for owner agents or property managers to choose which date to start importing tenant events on an XML file. A few areas I want to point out is this import start date field. where the users can actually input an actual start date of those tenant imports. And we'll go over a demo here in just a second so you can see how that works. And then fields in the import history of import start date and last tenant event date. So again, this will mirror this field up here for import start date, and then last tenant event date will actually notate the last tenant event that was entered with the previous XML upload. So for example, I'll bring over our Procorem environment here, and this is just one of our testing environments that we have in the system, and I'll go to our tenant portal. Give it a second. And the events that we'll be entering will be for 2024 compliance review. But it will not matter which compliance review you're in. Once we've uploaded this or released this import start date, it'll be available in all of our compliance reviews moving forward. So as you can see here, this is what our tenant portal looks like for your owner agents and property managers. And this process is actually going to be really great for our agencies that do not just annual imports of tenant events, but also those monthly or quarterly or even sometimes weekly imports. This allows you to not overwrite data that was previously entered for your tenant events and allows you to start imports after a certain date, or specifically wherein that last tenant event was actually imported previously. So to start this process, what you'd want to do is you'd go to your import start date field, and you're going to go to, for this example, I'll be starting the import on January 1st of 2024. And then you'll go ahead and choose your file. And what I want to choose is this file right here. Go ahead and open it. And then we're going to upload. It'll come up with an additional pop-up, and you'll want to hit OK. And it'll start the process of importing. Give it a second. It's trying to bring in all of those tenant events that we've put on the XML file. And I think there's about 20 here. And so now that that XML has imported, you can see here that the import start date is noted here as 1/1/2024. And we can see that the last tenant event that was imported was from 1/23/2024. So now, if, for instance, you are doing a monthly process of importing your tenant events, you can go and update this to say you want to start on 1/24 for the next import. And also this will automatically update. So whatever it says as the last tenant event date here will also update to the next available day on the calendar for your import start date to begin. So we can say 1/24/2024, or if for some reason you want to change that to be February 1st, so 2/1/2024, you can do that as well. So I'm going to make that change on my end. And then choose our next file, and this will be this one here. And again, you choose your file and then choose upload and say, yes, I want to upload it by hitting that OK button. And then again, it's going to go through the process of importing those tenant events. Give it a moment. Again, it's only about 20 events that it's importing, so it should take just a moment here. And there it goes, it completed. So it again has now changed this to say the import start date was on 2/1/2024. And now the last tenant event date that was imported was 2/23/2024. And you can see that the import start date has adjusted to say where they think, or where it thinks you should import the next event. So you would likely want to start on 2/24/2024 for your next import to make sure you don't miss any events. So that's a really great functionality addition for those agencies that are doing monthly uploads. Previously, our system would overwrite previous events that were entered into the system. And now with this ability, you don't have that happening on a regular basis. The next thing that I wanted to highlight came out with Q1 2026. And so this was just actually released, I want to say about a week ago on Thursday, and that is inactive user management. So at this time, we have actually replaced what used to be the contacts tab on our people and permissions tab. It previously was contacts, now it's going to be inactive users. And what this will do is it'll show additional screens when you click on any of these users that are listed here. So this shows all users who have either been removed from the environment of your account or have not been active in your environment for quite some time. When you actually go and click on one of the names, so for instance, this is choosing Hillcrest. When you click on that, you're going to see 3 tabs. So you'll see the Profile, Work Centers, and Activities tab. This Profile tab is informational, and it appears on the Previous and Active Users tab, and it will show when that user was invited, by whom they were invited, and who removed that user from the system. So for instance, this user was removed from the system. It wasn't that they were inactive, but it'll show that it was invited by, in this case, Kelly. It'll give their email address they sent the invite to, and when they were removed from the system, which was March 24th of 2021. The next tab would be your Work Centers tab. And this tab lists the active non-archived work centers that the user was previously assigned to. You can export this screen. In addition, you can also navigate to a work center to assign a replacement for this user. So if you need to replace this user with another collaborator, you can then click on the link under that Work Center tab, and it'll navigate you directly to that work center where you can add in new collaborator if you so choose. And this next one is the Activities tab. So this tab is going to show the standard list of activities sorted by the most recently performed activity by that user across all their work centers. So for example, this user was previously on Sabetha, Hillcrest, or Creekview Terrace, and it's going to show that the most recent activity for that user was that they were removed from that work center. So the most recent activity performed across all their work centers will be listed on this Activities tab. The next item I want to go over is this, again, with our Q1 2026 Procorem release, is the process for adding a new collaborator to Procorem. So previously, when you would hit that Add Collaborator button from Procorem, you would get a pop-up that would have both the first name, last name, and email address. So now what will happen is we've improved that workflow for adding users to a work center, making it easier to identify when a user profile already exists in Procorem. And that is using the email address here, because a lot of our Procorem account and user profiles are linked directly using the email address. They're not linked using the name of a user. So what you'll see now is just an email address field. What will happen is you'll enter the user's email address and you'll hit continue. What's going to happen in the background of the system is it's going to be utilizing that email address to cross-reference the work centers under your account and see if that user is already attached to the account and that work center using that email address. If the user is not already linked to that work center or account, you will get a new pop-up that has the email address written out, because that's what you entered here. And then that is where you can enter the user's first name and last name. And then it'll allow you to save, and that user will be added to the account. If that user is already a user on your Procorem account, it will fill in both the email, the first name, and the last name of that user. So it's going to pull the name, what's already attached to that email address, from your account. So it's going to then also tell you that this email is already associated with a Procorem profile, and their name will be filled in automatically and cannot be changed here. It'll notate that if they want to update their name, they must log into the Procorem profile and edit their profile. So that is one thing. We do get questions a lot on that and how to update the name of a user on their profile. And unfortunately, we can't change those. It actually is updated by the user themselves. So we always recommend that that user log into the profile and change their name on their end. One thing that we have noticed with our recent release of this functionality is that we did find an issue with the starting with this process over here where you enter just the email address and hit continue. Some users are experiencing when they enter that email address and hit that continue button that it's not going to one of these next screens. So either where you enter the first name and last name or where it will automatically populate. We have found a workaround while we are working to release the update and a resolution to this, and we're expecting that to come out with our Q2 release schedule. But the workaround for this is to hold down the control button on your keyboard while you're logged into Procorem and hit F5 on your keyboard as well. So you're going to hold the control button down and hit F5 at the same time. And that will refresh the background of the system and the background code of the system, and that will allow you to then enter an email address and hit continue and add your collaborators as normal moving forward. It is something that is not affecting all users. It is affecting just some users, but it will have to be done on each individual user's system if they are experiencing this issue. But once you do that control F5 update, it should stop you from having to do that in the future, and you should be able to move forward with this process for any collaborator addition moving forward. Something that came out with our Q4 2025 update is updates to our additional set-aside, and how that actually tests the additional set-aside on your compliance reviews. So this is a new configuration in ProLinkHFA, and you can see that configuration listed here. This is the ASA AMI designation effective date. And when you enter an effective date here on the setting value field, the system starts to test units based on their AMI designation using two new conditionally required fields. And you can see those two fields here under the tenant portal. And those are most recent income designation, most restrictive income designation, and then also most restrictive rent designation. When this configuration is enabled with a date, the compliance engine will compare the AMI percent from set-aside details against the most restrictive designation values on the tenant event for properties with additional set-asides. And this applies for both home and LIHTC properties. One thing to note, and we've gotten a couple of support tickets questioning this so far, is that you will want, if you have this ASA AMI designation effective date entered, you will want to make sure that your owner agents are entering this data, because essentially what the system will do is it will test the values for your current event against the previous event entered. So for instance, if you are entering a tenant event for 2026 for a tenant, it will use the most restrictive income designation for 2025 that was entered for that tenant to test against to make sure it is meeting that AMI percent for your additional set aside. And then finally, the biggest thing that we want to talk about and speak to today is our Procorem Inspect standalone version. Now, for our existing clients, this may not be as grand of an announcement, but for future clients or clients that aren't utilizing the HFA environment, this is a really big thing that we have releasing. So currently we have our Procorem Inspect application that allows users to complete Inspire or other inspections for properties. And what we're releasing now is called the standalone version. And currently that is planned for release in April of 2026, so within the next month here. So what this is it's essentially a portfolio property on your Procorem. So what this will do is you'll be able to have the opportunity to set up properties on Procorem, and then it will then connect to the application so you can complete those inspections. So what you're seeing here is a screenshot of that properties page. So you have the list of all the properties that are listed for, in this instance, it's showing Oregon Housing, but using what they have in their system for creating these properties. This next screen is our buildings tab. So if you follow the flow of a portfolio property, normally you have the property, building, units, and then you can have the inspections on that. So this is our building screen. So from the property that we've listed, we have 4 buildings on that property. Then you are able to click this add new building when you want to add any buildings to a property. And what will happen is this additional modal will pop up where you can enter the building's name, address, and how many stories the building is and the type of housing that is in that building. So in this case, it is multifamily housing. The next tab associated with the buildings tab is your units. So on that building, you can then list all of the units that are on that building and available for inspection. And then you can set up your inspections. So on each unit, you can add an inspection template. You also have the opportunity to choose one of our canned inspection templates. So we have some set up for things like Inspire inspections, or you can create customized inspections and actually add them to your unit and building as well. Once you've actually gone through the application and completed that inspection, you're able to see the inspection reports and things here. So this is showing your areas, findings, and you can see that you can have outside and inside areas as well as communal areas, like if you have like a pool area or a community center that you want to be able to also inspect, you can add those areas as well. And then once inspection is completed, you'll be able to go through and review reporting on those inspections. So you can see here we have the exigent report, which is those items that are required for a resolution within 24 hours. You also can see a full inspection report as well. And these can also be sent to users. So you can send them to the property manager. You can send them to additional individuals within each agency. But that is also able to be done here as well as on the actual Procorem Inspect application. So this is just a new opportunity for agencies that may not have ProLinkHFA to still use our Procorem Inspect application for your inspections for Inspire and other types as you kind of go forward in completing those. And that is the last slide I have for you today. I hope you had a great time and were able to learn a lot about what we've released over the last couple of quarters at ProLink.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jessica, for taking the time to go over what's new and the different things that we are offering on ProLink currently. Thank you for everybody for joining us. And we are going to be hosting another webinar closer to summer. Now, we usually do this on a monthly cadence, but lots of new features, lots of new things coming on. So to give our team some space and time to actually work on all of those new features, we are actually going to be hosting another webinar closer to summer. So be sure to keep on the lookout for any of that information that will be coming out in a little while. And just wanted to leave you with this one last thing, a reminder of our ProLink user group conference. This is where we're going to talk a lot more about this new functionality. We're also going to have some more collaborations. So if you have more questions, if you want to ask some of our team some things directly, this is going to be the perfect opportunity for you to do that. So if you are interested in joining our user group conference this year, reach out to marketing@prolinksolutions.com. You can also reach out to myself. You probably see a few of my emails coming in. It's just asanchez@prolinksolutions.com. So again, thank you so much, everybody, for joining this webinar today. And again, thank you so much, Jessica. Keep a lookout for in your email. I'll be sending out a copy of this slide deck and any other follow-up materials that we have. So thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your guys' day.